Okay, so the bottom of Chet Aman Aleph, Tzatan Rabbanon, in three ways, Syria is equal to Eretz Yisrael. So Syria, people say it's where Syria is now, and this is where David, he kaivish it himself. So is it like Eretz Yisrael or not? It has some things like Eretz Yisrael, some things not. And in three ways, it's like Chutz La'aretz. So Siman, these are the 6 ways. Afra, Tamei, Kechutz La'aretz. So here we have a gezerah on Chutz La'aretz that the offer of Chutz La'aretz is Tamei. This Taisus, it says that the reason is because of the mace, the flood, and everyone who died in the flood. So there's bits of ossur everywhere, and then you can come to touch it. So therefore, there's a gezerah of Tamei mace in Chutz La'aretz. Now Rashi here, even though that this Tana holds a kivush yachid shmei kivush. So kivush yachid here is David just did it. So there's a machlokas Rashi Taisus what kivush yachid is. Rashi said he did it without the Sanhedrin and all that. The kivush yachid shmei kivush kedekatani chayvis b'meiser. So he holds it taka it's Eretz Yisrael. Filahachi goes even though it was a proper kivush, he still geyser this offer that it's metame. So this is where it's like Chutz La'aretz, and it goes free. And if someone brings a get me Surya, it's like he's from Chutz La'aretz. Therefore, he has to say b'fnei nechtav. And in 3 ways to Eretz Yisrael, chayv b'meiser uba shavias, like Eretz Yisrael. So again, this is how we see that it's a kivush. Why is it chayv and meiser? Because a kivush yachid is good. So if you want to go there, if you eat in tahor and you are tahor, therefore you're allowed to enter there. Ma she'ein kein ba'eretz ha'amim, which is not true, like the in proper chutz la'aretz. L'kamei mefarish maihi. L'koine sadeh b'Syria. It's like that they bought it in the outskirts of Jerusalem. It's explained later. So it's chayvus meiser shvizka Eretz Yisrael because he holds kivush yachid shmei kivush. This is what Rashi was referring to. You can enter in there in tahara. You're tahor if you enter. But you said afrod tamei. This is an obvious stira. That this is like Chutz La'aretz, is like Chutz La'aretz, because if you go to Chutz La'aretz Yitame, there's a gezerah of Tuma to go to Chutz La'aretz. So the answer, but you enter B'Sheder Teva Umegdal, that you enter in, so you enter, you can be tahor in the avir, into the air of Syria, which is unlike Chutz La'aretz, that there's a gezerah on the avir of Chutz La'aretz as well. So if you enter into Chutz La'aretz in a box, so then it would be you are tahor. But if you enter in a Chutz La'aretz in a box, mistame you're tame. So Titani hakonis la'eretz ha'amim b'sheda tevu magdal Rebbe mitame v'Rebbe Yossi v'Rebbe Yehuda mitahir. So Rebbe says that you're tame. V'afila Rebbe lo kamtana ele ba'aretz ha'amim. So this is all because there's a gezerah of the gusha v'al avira v'al surya al gusha gozru v'al avira lo gozru. So here the Maklokas doesn't get into the Maklokas here, but Rebbe holds that a ohel zorok lav shemei ohel, that a tent that is moving through the air is not called an ohel. Therefore, it's not an ohel that protects you. Therefore, you're metame, and therefore Rabbi Yossi, but Rabbi Yehuda is metahir because he holds ohel zorok shemei ohel. And the pashtus is the halach is like Rebbe when it says, but Rebbe is only metame in the gush, on the actual touching of the soil itself, and on the avira in Chutz La'aretz is also a gezerah, but there's no gezerah in the avir, and that's why Suri is different. However, bein Suri bein Chutz La'aretz, then it is also for it's tamei, the land there. So there's a Shulchan Aruch. So the Shulchan Aruch, HaKohen is mushar to not be metame to a mace, and then he gives a whole list of all the tame. and after all the list of all the tames, the kol aretz ha'amim ossur lakon l'timei b'hem. So this ossur lakon l'timei b'hem is the whole list. But here we have the kol aretz ha'amim, so that clear in the Shulchan Aruch that the kohen is ossur to go to chutz la'aretz. And the Ramah here is talking about a different point. To limitei lecherev is a sheets of Rabbeinu Tam, where if you have a sword that's stuck into somebody, so then that would be tamei mace, like the tamei itself. But the Ramah and the Shulchan Aruch seem clear that a kohen is ossur to go to chutz la'aretz. So the Shach and the Taz, kol aretz ha'amim, perish the bisman shahai Eretz Yisrael b'tahira. It would be also for a Kohen to go from Eretz Yisrael to Eretz Amim, because that's chutz la'aretz, because they were oivach chachavim would just bury their mace anywhere. So the Shach is saying that clearly that the Shulchan Aruch is only talking about bisman, that the Eretz Yisrael was tahira. So like bisman had Beis Hamikdash, and therefore it doesn't apply today. So a Kohen can go to chutz la'aretz. The Taz kol aretz amim zeh kai bisman shayet tahira be'eretz Yisrael. Yes, it means that people are observing the laws of tahiris, and that there's a difference if you're tahor or that you're tamei, and that people would eat in the state of tahiris, and then kohanim can eat their truma in the state of tahiris. So when people were doing that, so therefore that's when the Shulchan Aruch was referring to. However, in other but bisman is no. So it's also brought out here in the Rebbe Kiveger, Achshav lohad le'lizaher. So today we don't care about halacha. The ulai yesh lahakel mepnei har parnasa. So see, already he's Rebbe Kiveger is worried about this. So even if he's not a Kohen, he would have had Kohanim in his tzibur. And maybe there's like to be mekel because of the parnasa, just like Tishari lahatzil miyad oivik kachavim. So later on, it basically says that a Kohen is allowed to go into chutz la'aretz if he's going to take his money to save it from a goy, so therefore two parnasa would come under that same heter. Now there is a Shulchan Aruch later. This is a different Siman. The Shulchan Aruch before is in Avilos. This is also in Avilos, but it's 72 and 69. Even though the Kohen is also to go to the base hapras, which is you lost a kever in there, or to chutz la'aretz. So again, these are dinei tuma d'Rabbanan. To go into chutz la'aretz is still a din d'Rabbanan, but it's still a tuma d'Rabbanan, still isur. If he needs to go there to marry a woman is one heter, to learn Torah is the second heter, ein lo derech echeres, then he can go on this specific derech. So he can be metame d'Rabbanan for these two heterim, to limit Torah and to marry a woman. So these are the so the Shulchan Aruch again, the Chayre is machmir here that you can't go, but the Mefarshi of the Shulchan Aruch are saying that the Shulchan Aruch it doesn't refer to today. Now here in the Rambam in Niziro, so there's also halachas that the Nazir isn't allowed to go to chutz la'aretz either, because the Nazir has to be tahor. But there's a big long rivit here. But at the end, the rivit says, "V'hakohanim b'zman hazeh, they're tamei meis hen, v'od ein alein chiyuv tuma." Now again, there are many ways to understand this. I will actually get into this next time with shiurei ribuim. V'hamachayev otam alav lahavi raya. So if you want to machayev the Kohen, if he becomes tamei, then he has to prove that he wasn't already tamei. So what he's saying here is that since the Kohanim today are tumei meis anyway, and therefore they don't anymore have a chiyuv to separate themselves from tuma, and therefore the Ravid would hold a taka. Again, this would be a maklokas on the Shulchan Aruch, because the Shulchan Aruch is saying and it's also, but it's the Ravid is saying that it's mutter for a Kohen to go to chutz la'aretz because the Kohanim are tamei anyway. So therefore, since they're tamei, they don't have a chiv to be pirish from tuma, and therefore they can stay they can stay in chutz la'aretz, they can go to chutz la'aretz, they don't have any din. So the Dogel Mervava says im kain. Kohanim bisman hazeh ein muzharin ala tuma. If we go like the Rav is pilig the heichet shekavar tami shuv ein muzhar ala tuma. This is a shita of the Rav, and again he's arguing on the Rambam. I mean, there's a whole shaila as to whether if you're tamei, are you now? So what is the geder of the chiyuv of a kohen to not become tamei? Is it don't be in a state of tuma, and therefore once you're tamei and you can't get out of the tuma, so therefore it doesn't matter what you do, or is it don't come in contact with tuma? So if it's in being in a state of tuma, so then again there's no difference if a kohen can just become tamei. It doesn't matter. If it's don't be in contact with tuma, so therefore now even if you're tamei, you still have an isser to become in contact with tuma, and therefore you're supposed to become contact with tuma. So this is a sheet of the Raiva that goes against a lot of the other poiskim. So Raiva's polig is that when you're already tamei, you don't have any azhara. There's no warning. There's no lav to become tamei. Im kain gan was on a zeh, they're not muzah on a tuma, even though we don't it's the aftalo kaima line karivid. So now he wants to be that we have a the tumas of a goy, we have a svek sveka. Shema kaima line karivid. Shema kaima line karivid im timsi loimer to lo karivid mikomokam shema goy enim metama ba'oiho. So here we have like a svek. So we have a maklokas as to a goy. Everyone will hold that you can't touch a goy, but to be in an oihel goy, so either stand over the kever or to be, they say like in hospitals, if goyim are going to die in the hospital, so we have a problem of the oihel. So according to this, you won't have the problem because of svek sveka. Now here he says that to look kaimalan karayvet, and yeah, he still calls it a svek sveka shema kaimalan karayvet. So just having a sheet that we don't poskin like he's putting into his svek sveka. So here and again so it's more of a suffix how to posken for is a goy metame ba'oiho, but here using this sniff of the Ravid, we have that the kohen can be mekel with tuma. Now there's a maklokas in the shita of the Ravid as to whether if in the day the kohen becomes tamei, is it just the end of the day that he doesn't have to be more tamei, or is it the entire like the rest of his life? Because as soon as the red heifer is ready, so therefore they'll start doing sprinkling for day 3. But if you were tamei today, then you can't get day 3 sprinkling. You have to wait 2 days. So you are delaying your tahoira if you are tamei today. So this is a sheet that's brought so that even if you agree with the Ravid that the rest of the day the Kohen can be metame to whoever he wants, and that for the rest of his life is not true. Once it's the next day, he's not allowed to be tame because he's already started counting. You count 3 days and then you get the red heifer. So in 3 days, maybe Mashiach will come and they'll have the red heifer, and then he if he's metame today, then he'll be delaying that and therefore be ossur. Now, on the Shulchan Aruch here, we have the Piskei Teshuvah, Eretz Amim. See the Rav Amit in the Shem of the name of the, we're going to see Samarit and the Shavus Yaakov. Even Bizman Ezeh, basically it's ossur. We're going to see that. Va'ayin shegadol echad heishiv elav bezeh. V'hu zal choizer la'amid divrav. If only all teachings would be as clear as this, that the Isser, the din of Eretz Amim is Tameh, is noiheg in our days. Af bizman hazeh. To look at Asachorim nimshachu bezeh achar divrei hamarshal. So the Marshal was the first one to bring into the halacha that basically it's talking about bisman. Again, the Torah says, like the Shulchan Aruch, that it's also for Kohen to go to Chutz La'aretz, and the Marshal is saying that that's only in those days. But the Empire Strikes Back here, the Piskei Teshuvah is bringing the Maharit and the Shavus Yaakov to say that we don't go like this Marshal, and that it's still also today for Kohen to go to Chutz La'aretz. So here's the Rambam, Hilchos Malachim, Also, let's say Eretz Yisrael l'chutz la'aretz la'olam. Now, nothing here is talking about Kohanim. It's just also, now Rambam himself, he lived in Chutz La'aretz, and when he was in Egypt, he signed off as saying Rambam the sinner, because he holds that it's also to live in Mitzrayim. But it's also to, now if you're Medaic in the words here, it's also let's say Eretz Yisrael, to go to Chutz La'aretz forever. So they say about the Rebbe never came to Eretz Yisrael. They said if he came, he'd never leave. So if he never came, it might be like this Rambam. That's also to leave if you never came, but if you're never here, so therefore it's okay to live Chutz La'aretz. I think it's the Eila Limud Torah or Liseisha or Lahatzu Mena Akum. Now again, this isn't Parnasa, it's just to save yourself from Akum. But Ken Yoitze La Sechaira, maybe Sechaira would be Parnasa. Aval Shechein b'Chutz La'aretz ossur. To live, and there you go, Mefurish Rambam, to live Chutz La'aretz, it's ossur. And Ken Chazak Sham, in Israel you have the famine, or it's Sheva Dina Chitim, which that's extremely expensive. That's that could be what's going on today. But here it's talking about everyone. Everyone has an isser to go from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz. So there's an isser in itself to leave Chutz La'aretz, and some versions say that the gezerah of Tuma in Chutz La'aretz is so that people won't live there and that they'll live in Eretz Yisrael. Now this is a Gemara in Kesuvos. What's it? Kuf Yod on a base, where everyone goes up to Eretz Yisrael and not everyone goes out, and that if a man is trying to, a man can force his wife to go to Eretz Yisrael, but he can't force her to leave, so he says to go up, right? And then she doesn't want to, you can force her. Tosfos says, you can't force your wife to go to Eretz Yisrael today. Because it's different. The paths are dangerous and people can die on the way to Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, you can't, if a mitzvah is going to put you into pekuach nefesh, so therefore there's no mitzvah. So this is the shita of Rabbeinu Chaim. The achshav eino mitzvah l'dur be'Eretz Yisrael. So Tosfos here is saying, Rabbeinu Chaim, there's no mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. Ki yesh kama mitzvahs hatuluis ba'aretz. There's many mitzvahs that are tuli ba'aretz, and kama oinshin, there's many punishments. Because we're not able to be careful with them and to stand by them. Now, this is quite a bizarre Tosfos, because he's saying basically that there's mitzvahs in Eretz Yisrael, and who can do mitzvahs? And there's lots of oinshin if you don't keep mitzvahs. So therefore, there's no mitzvah to go to Eretz Yisrael because there's mitzvahs there, which is an extremely bizarre Tosfos. Now, the idea that there needs to again living in Eretz Yisrael is living in the palace. So if this is all part of the relationship, so therefore you can't have a mitzvah to tell you to go live there. You have to be best friends with God. That can't be a mitzvah. It has to be a rishus. It has to be something that you're doing outside of the mitzvah. So therefore, to say there's no mitzvah, so then that's just deepening the relationship. But to say there's no mitzvah because you're not going to keep the mitzvahs, that's a little bit of a little bit rochok, a little bit of a strange tam there, Tosfos. Now again, in this Rambam, it seems to be that there's, again, it's not necessarily saying there's a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. It's just saying you can't live anywhere else. This is the Halichas Shloimei, which is Rav Auerbach. So Rav Auerbach here, it's bad in his eyes. Ma'od. So it's like bad in this is Rav Zalman Auerbach. So again, we saw the specific things: to marry a woman, to learn Torah, ulai parnasa. So people, it's ran his eyes. The people would just leave Eretz Yisrael. Again, there's nothing to do with Kohanim. And he would say she'ena roya heter lekach. He doesn't say what the heter is. And it was asked. This is in 5731 to go to Chutz La'aretz for the simchas of the bar mitzvah of his grandson. So his grandson somehow made it to Chutz La'aretz, and he was asked to go there. Katav shelo ra heter maspek lekan. He didn't see a heter to go to his grandson's bar mitzvah in Chutz La'aretz. V'husaf, and he adds that even if you would Arbe Shem, he would give it over to Shir and Torah for the Rabbim, and they would be Bekach and Mitzvah Tamat Torah B'Rabbim and Komokom. You have the riboy of that he's teaching. He would have a miud in his own limud, that he would have a bittul Torah keneged the bittul Torah keneged the marba b'Torah. So going to Chutz La'aretz for there, even though he didn't see a heter. But Prat Kohanim, they have a chosh of the Dasa Poiskin. Ossur letzeis mishum tumas aretz ha'amim. So here again, it's a maklokas in the poiskim as to whether the Shulchan Aruch was talking about today or not. So he says up in 10. Again, this is Rav Auerbach. Umihu beikar yitzis kahanim l'chutz la'aretz have Rabbeinu. Then this is the Talmidim speaking about him. Is choichech harbe lahachmir. He's he wants to be machmir. Milvad ha isur haklali shel yitzis Eretz Yisrael. Even though there's a general isur to leave Eretz Yisrael, Shrin Shulchan Aruch hachmiru gam shegam zman hazeh. It's also for Cohen to go to Eretz Hamim. The Pesach Teshuva sham havi b'shem ha Shavos Ya'akov. Shkadav halavai shekol moedenu yeh nechonim. All the everything would be so clear, and everyone would listen to the halacha, the law kamalam karishal, she'ein tuma zeh nehag b'zman hazeh. So again, he's coming off the Piskei Teshuvah we saw there, that again it's maklokas in the poiskim, and many hold that today it's also for the Kohen to go to Chutz La'aretz. So this is in the Shavus Ya'akov. So Moshe Cohen had dar by Eretz Yisrael. Ve'einu min atzorech le'divrei ve'lelech la'aretz ha'amim. So you don't have a heter, one of the things to marry a woman. Ossur le'lech mepnei atuma shel divrei him, that it's a isur de rabbanim. Ve'afol gav de'i nema de bizman hazeh botlu kedushas Eretz Yisrael. Even if you want to say that the kedushas of the land is bottle. Kevin she'einu biyad Yisrael, it's because the Jews don't hold it. That doesn't apply today. Mikom ein biyadenu lasu gezerah chadash. You can't have a new gezerah. Once there's a gezerah, then you can't just make a new one. Legoizes alav tuma ke'eretz ha'amim mamish. Ubepratim lefi mashakativ toises benazir. So again, this is the tam for the gezerah going to the toises there. Lekach gozru tuma al eretz ha'amim. Why? Kedei shelo letzeis me'eretz l'chutz la'aretz. So one thing is that in order to stop people going to Chutz La'aretz, therefore they made the gezerah. And so it's also mipnei mate mabul, that in the time of Noach, so therefore there were bits of basar, dead people everywhere. So who does gezerah sheva b'kol? So it's for everybody, and therefore who can be mevatel this gezerah today? And the tuma, where did it go? Therefore nearly poshut. The achronim. At the gozu, the shogagu bezu. So here he's saying, these were there's a shoygeg by the Taz and the Shach. The ain shoymim lahem lahakel bezeh, and we shouldn't listen to them to be makel in this. And also for a Kohen to go from Eretz Yisrael to the Chutz La'aretz because of the Tumah. However, the Kohanim that are in Eretz Ha'amim, b'pnei lachatz, zu hadoicheg ol hagolos, ain shum oynish aleihim. But they don't get punished. So the Kohanim that are there, so they don't get punished. Like we've written above. They're already tamei betumas divrehim bechiburim legusha. So once they're in Chutz La'aretz, so therefore they're touching the ground of Chutz La'aretz, they become tamei. They're the avira, and the avir of Chutz La'aretz is tamei as well. Shehutuma chamura shesurfim al gusha, so that you burn truma based on this. So since they are already have this tuma, the imkain nira the kevin shkavar, they're already tamei b'chibur la'aretz amim mutter lachser v'lismei atzmo. So they can kind of stay there because they were already there. They're already tamei because of this, and therefore they can stay there. the afilu betuma deraisa, even a tuma deraisa, and obviously we're talking about tuma derabanan, but ocha kohen mitasek b'meso. So when the kohen has a heter to be tame to his korov and he's isek b'meis, it's mutter to be tame also to a cherem. And we're going to see this next time. Again, we talk about riboy shiurim, but that there's a shita here that once you're already oisek in a mace, then you can be oisek with another mason as well. But here, Chlor is holding, and again, it's not just arguing. He's saying that everyone's made a mistake, and it's poshut that you should be that the Kohen is not allowed to go to Chutz La'aretz. So the Minchas Chinuch also has the idea that the Kohen who's already in Chutz La'aretz, so therefore he can stay there because he's already tamei. And so here in the Marish, which we have seen before, is quoting some of this was Ya'akov and saying that it's ossur to for a Kohen to go to Chutz La'aretz. Here he has another point here. Mekanata lamed shedivrei Rabbi Chaim. So has here a someone's trying to be matir and neder that he made because he came to Eretz Yisrael and he went broke. So he's trying to matir his neder. So, but in the meantime, he's saying that you can learn in the divrei Tzachim as enemy sort of toisef ki milanu baki but divrei toisef me maharam v'harosh zal. So he's bringing that the maharam and the rosh don't bring this Rebbe Chaim anywhere, and since toisef a rosh and the maharam, he's saying here are the greatest of miyasodin, that looking through the toisesim and making the shitas of the toisef, so what's actually toisef is written. So I found in the Hagos Mordechai, so first we have that the Maharam and the Rosh don't bring this idea of Tosfos that there's no mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael anymore because of the we're not going to do mitzvahs there. Koloshin is Kesav Rabbeinu Chaim Kohen b'teshuva Tahani Mini b'Yemehem Shahaya Shalom Aval Achshav Shahadrachim Mishubashim Enu Yachol Koifa. So here in the Mordechai, he's only referring to the one thing. Now, what did Tosfos say? He said two things really: that ikat sakanas derachim, and then Rabbeinu Chaim would say that we can't keep mitzvahs, so don't bother going to Eretz Yisrael. So here in the Mordechai, he's only bringing the one thing. Look what Rabbeinu Chaim said. That was in those days when there was shalom, where you could go to Eretz Yisrael while they were shalom. But today, when the drachim are dangerous, then you're not able to force her. So therefore, here he doesn't bring anything about the idea of we can't do mitzvahs there. If you Lo ba ele mitam sekanas hadrachim. So therefore he's proving from the fact that the Rosh doesn't mention anything, Maharam doesn't mention anything, and that the Mordechai is bringing the Shita only for sekanas hadrachim. Therefore, that was the only reason that Chaim said. So why is there no chiyuv to live in Eretz Yisrael? Because getting there is sekanas nefashos, which mevatels the mitzvah. But teshuva is the ein mitzvah l'dor Eretz Yisrael. So we see in the Tosfos that there's no mitzvah during Eretz Yisrael. That's a hagas of the Talmud. For love the samcha he klal. So don't be soymech on us at all. And that kind of explains why the tam is so shvach, because Tosfos never said it. And here in the Chasam Sofer, talking about selling an eved to Chutz La'aretz, Yishlam with a hatam eina makayim shum mitzvah. There's no mitzvah to send him to Chutz, to send an eved to Chutz La'aretz, to call hadar b'Chutz La'aretz. Kamosha ein lo aloya, which is a famous Gemara in Kesuvos. Even Kriya Shema shekayir b'Chutz La'aretz einino kayir b'Eretz Yisrael. Even if he's saying Kriya Shema, simple mitzvah like Kriya Shema, it's not the same in Chutz La'aretz as it is in Eretz Yisrael. That he was being kicked out from joining in with the nachlas of Hashem, and that is a big musser that we can take from this. But Makom appears to me that's an Evet Kanani that he to go to Chutz La'aretz. That sending in there is not going to do anything for him. But the Gedol Yisrael, the Tamil Chacham, Oiske B'Torah, for them it is said, Makom Makom is Muktar Mugash to my name. So therefore they can create a Tahor Mincha wherever they go. The Gedol Yisrael, so with with the Torah that they take with them and into the Chus La'aretz, that they can create a sanctuary in Chus La'aretz. V'yeh lehem, I'll be to them as a mikdash. That's the Beis Rabbeinu Shebabavel. So therefore, you can be memamshek the Eretz Yisrael Kedusha to Chus La'aretz, but Nistamazoi, even Kriya Shema in Chus La'aretz is nothing compared to Kriya Shema in Eretz Yisrael. So we were discussing Eichel Zorok in the Gemara here. Igros Moshe, if it's mutter for a Kohen to travel in an aeroplane, that they go with a mace to his kever in Eretz Yisrael. So here he brings basically that it's the whole thing is ein chaytzes because it's a davar shemekabel tuma. Since it's a davar shemekabel tuma, so then it's basically not chaytzes, and then it'd be ossur. So after saying it's ossur, and he says the airplane, it's not from the 6 types of metals that are said in the so what something that's davar shemekabel tuma is not chaytzes mipnei tuma. So since the metal is mekabel tuma, then so iron, for example, is one of the 6 metals, and that's mekabel tuma, and the iron steel is made of 98% iron and 2% carbon or something like that. So those 6 metals are mekabel tuma. Since they're mekabel tuma, therefore they're not chaytzes mipnei tuma. Therefore, if there's a mace in the plane, so therefore there's no chaytzes, and it would be an oihel for the tuma, but it doesn't. The separate compartments wouldn't chaytzes. That's basically the idea. But he's saying that's only if it's one of the 6 types of metal that's mentioned in the Torah. Well, after the gam min metachet ze eino min acher she'ela shehu nasa mitruvus mi minim elu. So you have the 6 types. And now aluminium is a new finding that the Torah didn't list. It's a metal we have today. Aluminium is its own metal. It's on the what's it called, the periodic table. So do we say the aluminium that the Torah was specifically listing 6. It didn't say, it could just say metachet, but it listed the 6. So the pashtus is that those 6 yes, or the metals no. Or we say no, it's those 6 and other metals as well. So first shaila here is that maybe that this aluminium is really, I basically don't know what the metals that you make a plane out of. But tzarech lachakur lediyazeh, you have to look into it. And if it's coming out clear that it's a min acher, which is true, aluminium is a different acher. Shahaya rotzon ishtabach shitgale, but dairis elu achronim. So God wanted the later generation to find new materials, and then therefore those new materials won't be mekabel tuma or whatever. Haya naita yoter shalom mekabel tuma. I would say that it would be more mekabel to the davar mama shepatun raya she'ein lemalef minei meteches acherim. That we're not going to learn out other metals from the list of those 6. And also he says here you go boss to the roiv. What is it? It's in a bataruva. So steel is not one of the 6, but what is steel? Steel is 98% iron, so iron is one of the 6, so steel would be a mekabel tuma. Now, roiv of an airplane is made from aluminium, and roiv of an airplane is made from aluminium, and that aluminium is its own separate din, so therefore, l'chayra here in the if you chayker a davar, l'chayra Moshe would agree that an airplane is chaytzis mipnei tuma because of the material is using is actually a separate thing, and the roiv of it is not one of the 6 that's mentioned in the Torah.